Greetings from the Idaho Bluegrass Association. This is Gary Eller speaking from his home in Pickles Butte, Idaho. We have prepared a series of podcasts based on interviews of people with deep roots in Idaho who rose to national prominence or otherwise made a significant impact on bluegrass music in Idaho. This series of podcasts is a collaboration between the Idaho Bluegrass Association, Idaho Songs Project, National Old Time Fiddlers Association, and Utah State University. Here we are, August 7th, 2021. It's Gary Eller here with Dennis Stokes currently of the Chicken Dinner Road Band, and we are here at the wonderful Yellow Pine, Idaho Harmonica Festival. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm great, Gary. Thank you for having me. Yeah, this is an amazing event. I never imagined, what it would be like. I actually imagined what it would be like, and it's nothing like I thought.
It's a little bit like the Weezer contest. You can't describe it. You have to experience it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Friendly people all over the place, and everybody's just wanting to have a good time, listen to good music.
Well, as you know, this interview is part of the Idaho Bluegrass Association's podcast series, and we've interviewed people who were in the bluegrass scene in Idaho before you came to Idaho in what year?
2000.
Year 2000. But since then, you've been very prominent in leading one of the most regionally popular bluegrass bands in Idaho. So we'll get to the Chicken Dinner Road story here in a little bit. But first, let's click rewind to the beginning. Tell us about your childhood.
So I grew up in Florida. I was born in Lake Wales, Florida, which is down in the central part of the state. When I was 5, my parents moved up to the panhandle of Florida, and we lived up there in a town called Chipley. My dad worked for the Department of Agriculture, so we moved up there. A couple days after I graduated high school, I went up to University of Alabama at Birmingham for college. Played football up there for 4 years. Then it was on to 3 years at Auburn grad school, and then it was off to Idaho.
All right. And you started singing, as I understand it, when you were quite young, and church singing and school singing.
Yeah, church singing was always a part of it. School, when we had plays, musicals and that sort of thing, I always tended to get a solo or two in those, and little talent shows that we would have. The one song that I sang for a lot of talent shows was Lee Greenwood, God Bless the USA. I remember practicing that in my room. I never liked to practice. I was always more natural at everything, but my mom made me practice for that song, and I was still really embarrassed by singing in front of people. Even my parents. I was embarrassed by singing in front of my parents.
So you came by that rich baritone voice naturally then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Kind of a long lineage of that, actually.
It sounds as though you grew up singing church and country music.
Yeah, old country, a lot of Hank Williams. I had a couple uncles that were good musicians, good singers. And I learned a lot from those guys, and they were always at family gatherings. They would always request that I come up and sing a song and that sort of thing, even as a 5-6-year-old.
So you were around guitar players and singers?
Yeah.
In the family?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. What about the bluegrass picture? Florida's so famous for famous bluegrass players coming out of. Did you see bluegrass when you were growing up?
I remember going to some bluegrass festivals, but I really didn't know what bluegrass was in particular. I'd heard a lot of it, but I do remember going to bluegrass festivals here and there, and there was a friend of mine, and his dad had a bluegrass band. I remember writing a song. It was the first song that we ever penned, and it was my buddy and I. His name was Danny Hood, and I remember his dad and his band actually let us get up and perform this song in front of a small audience. They played a lot of the old bluegrass. You might say I cut my teeth listening to those guys.
Well, I think I'll interject at this point for the benefit of the listeners that occasionally you'll hear campground noises and lots of four-wheelers running around and laughter in the campground and occasional yeehaw as this town of 25 grows to, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people in here now.
Yeah, there's hundreds.
Maybe more than that.
Yeah.
So it's just joyful sounds of a fantastic event.
Yeah.
Now let's listen to Dennis Stokes sing the classic bluegrass song, Doin' My Time, written by Jimmy Skinner and recorded in 1948 and subsequently covered by countless bands, including Flatt and Scruggs and Jimmy Martin. This track is from one of 2 CDs produced by the original Chicken Dinner Road lineup. Came out in 2007 on the CD I've Turned Around, with 11 standards and 1 original song.
On the Soul Rock Pine, with a ball and chain, they call me by a number, not a name, Lord, Lord. Gotta do my time, I gotta do my time, with an aching heart and a worried mind. You can hear my hammer, you can hear my song. Gonna swing it like John Henry all day long, Lord, Lord. Gotta do my time, I gotta do my time, with an aching heart and a worried mind. When that old judge looked down and smiled, said, I'll put you on that good book for a while, Lord, Lord. Gotta do my time, I gotta do my time, with an aching heart and a worried mind. Well, it won't be long, just a few more days, gonna settle down and quit my rowdy ways, Lord, Lord, with that gal of mine, with that gal of mine. She'll be waiting for me while I've done my time.
You went through graduate school in Auburn, became a dairy nutritionist, and came to Idaho to make your career.
Yeah, sure did.
Tell us how you got into the bluegrass scene in Idaho.
I met this guy, Brian Haken. he and I hit it off. We talked about old country, and matter of fact, that first night that we met, we both went home because he lived close and I lived close. We both went home, got our guitars, and brought them back and just started trading back and forth old country music. The more we talked, he says his girlfriend and him at the time, they were going over to hear Ricky Skaggs and Kentucky Thunder in Oregon, I believe. And I'm like, oh man, you know, I love that guy, and I really like what they're doing now, bluegrass wise, because they've kind of brought bluegrass back and made it cool again. And so we both started listening to and trading music back and forth. And Brian one day said, I want to play the banjo. And I'm like, you know what? I've been listening to Ricky Skaggs. I kind of want to pick up the mandolin. So we decided we'd do that. And we kept up with each other, and we never really got together and played banjo, mandolin, but we would toss songs back and forth and sing them, you know, and that sort of thing. So Brian and I got this bright idea to come up with 3 songs, and we would go to the Bluegrass in the barn, the Bob Greer's place, and we were going to go play 3 songs at open mic. Just Brian and I, brother style. Trying to think of the songs that we played that very first time. I know Bury Me Beneath the Willow was one of them. And then there was a couple other gospel tunes that I think we did. And you know what? It worked. The people really liked it. We were nervous. Brian, after the first song, he's like, I gotta have water. he got the cotton mouth, you know, he was all nervous and everything. So anyway, that's kind of how Chicken Dinner Road started. Brian was taking banjo lessons from a guy named Bill Cates. Bill was a prominent banjo player in the area, and Bill was known for playing in multiple bands. And so one day, Brian and Bill were talking, and I guess Bill had seen us a couple times at the Bluegrass in the barn. Bill says, well, I know this bass player. And it was a bass player, Harry Strang, that he was with in another band. And they're like, well, we need to find a fiddle player. And I had a friend that did my wife's nails, and she played fiddle back 9 years before that. Hadn't picked it up since. But I was like, well, maybe I'll talk to her. Maybe she can play fiddle for us. Well, Karma Phillips actually reluctantly said yes, and Chicken Dinner Road was born.
Well, one of the currently underappreciated personalities in bluegrass in southwest Idaho, in my opinion, is Bob Greer.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
In his Bluegrass barn.
Yeah.
And he died some years ago. And that Bluegrass barn was a happening place, wasn't it?
It was. It was really an amazing atmosphere. I got my start in the Idaho bluegrass scene was right there at Bob's barn. And Bob actually encouraged me. Brian and I, up until that point, we'd been following around Heaven Bound, which Bob led that. And we've been following around the Buckhorn Mountain Boys and, you know, those local groups like that. I remember Brian and I, we didn't care. We just wanted to get to know them. We'd carry their cases for them if they'd let us.
You were walking in tall cotton, weren't you?
I'm telling you, man, it was good. And then a few of those groups started hearing what we had going on and whatnot. And it was the beginning of a beautiful community for us. It all started right there at Bob's barn.
In 2010, Chicken Dinner Road issued a self-titled CD. This CD included Gary Eller and Rue Frisbee on it, and 12 original songs. It marked a departure from the band's previous emphasis on strictly traditional bluegrass to the inclusion of music from a much wider range of sources. The track we play here, A New Life, was written by Dennis Stokes about his father.
A month from now he'll start a new beginning. He'll retire from his job of 40 years. This new life will be strange and unfamiliar. It's almost time to face his greatest fear. It's 5 a.m., he puts on his pot of coffee, lights up a smoke and sits there in his chair. He wonders what he'll do with all his free time. After all these years, he won't have this load to bear. There'll be no more punching a time clock. He claims he won't miss that. The long, hard days on the assembly line, hated wearing that old hard hat. He's been waiting for this day for years, now admits that he's scared to death. He'll be trying to live a new life till he takes his final breath. Scrubs his face as he looks into the mirror. The young man doesn't stand there anymore. The day has come and he'll meet his young replacement. He'll work harder today than he ever has before. There'll be no more punching a time clock. He claims he won't miss that. The long, hard days on the assembly line, hated wearing that old hard hat. He's been waiting for this day for years, now admits that he's scared to death. He'll be trying to live a new life till he takes his final breath. There'll be no more punching a time clock. He claims he won't miss that. The long, hard days on the assembly line, hated wearing that old hard hat. He's been waiting for this day for years, now admits that he's scared to death. He'll be trying to live a new life till he takes his final breath. He'll be trying to live a new life till he takes his final breath.
All right, walk us through the evolution of the band to the present time.
Bill Cates, myself, Brian Haken, Harry Strang, and Karma Phillips. So that was 2005. A couple years went by. That was the first time Rue came in. So Rue, and then probably a year later is when you came along. You came along with a little bit different style and a little bit different toolbox than Bill had. And so that continued the evolution. It all started with Rue, because the Buckhorn Mountain Boys had just broken up, and we got in contact with Rue, and Rue was itching to play somewhere, and Karma had just left the band, so it was a perfect fit.
Well, we covered Rue in a prior podcast, and anybody that's ever seen Rue play on stage will recognize the energy and the personality he brings to any group.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that we pride ourselves in is a lot of energy. And that was one of the things that we wanted to do, to separate ourselves from other bands was be excited about being up there.
Could you talk a little bit about Kentucky and Tennessee tour?
We went back there through my contact. I was putting on some concerts there here locally, and I met Valerie Smith and Liberty Pike, and Valerie was the first artist that I actually hosted in concert, and she is from Bell Buckle, Tennessee, and she has an annual event where she brings a bunch of bands in, and they just have like a mini festival one day. She invited us on a couple of occasions back to play there, and it just happened to work out that was the same week as the World Equestrian Games in Kentucky. And the connection there is on the dairy side of things. I work with Alltech on occasion, and Alltech is based back in Lexington, Kentucky, and they were the title sponsor of the World Equestrian Games and actually asked us if we wanted to come play at that event. And so it all worked out where we were going to play the games and we were going to play Bell Buckle all in the same week. So we went back, spent basically a week there.
I think IBMA was having their annual meeting.
Exactly. Yeah. And we also, after we played in Bell Buckle, we got an opportunity to go and play at the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame. And we played
in Owensboro.
Yeah, in Owensboro. And we got to play, 4 or 5 songs?
Live radio broadcast.
Live radio broadcast.
That was quite an experience.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
And so we had a great time doing that. So what a tour.
In 2012, Chicken Dinner Road issued the CD Off the Beaten Path. This CD includes the players John Blakely and L.B. Robertson, a lineup which continues to the present time. The CD contained 9 originals and 4 covers from songwriters as wide-ranging as Ernest Tubb, Larry Cordell, Norton Buffalo, and Shirley Temple. Dennis decided the band needed to include a murder ballad, so he wrote one, The Ballad of Clay.
Came to town late one night with liquor on his breath. A nickel-plated 44 shoved way down in his vest. The boy about half crazy, eyes running through his veins. A flash of lightning filled the sky as it began to rain. Dressed in black, how perfect, one thing on his mind: find the man who got away the day his mama died. He knew the man was hiding in this dirty border town, for he could wait no longer to shoot his daddy down. Clay was only 24 and big enough to hold his own. His daddy used to beat those kids till they were nearly grown. He'd sworn off all religion, calloused heart and calloused hands. Clay swore upon his mama's grave he'd kill that evil man. The devil was his only friend since he'd been on the run. He'd hit rock bottom and killed his wife. His mind just wasn't right, but hell would soon catch reach up to him on a cold November night. Yeah. Clay waited around the corner from the street his dad would walk every night from the bar, so drunk he couldn't talk. The old man felt real safe in this tiny border town. Clay was cocked and ready when he heard a fired round. Clay was only 24 and big enough to hold his own. His daddy used to beat those kids till they were nearly grown. He'd sworn off all religion, calloused heart and calloused hands. Clay swore upon his mama's grave he'd kill that evil man. Face down in the street, lying in a pool of blood, shell casing at his feet. Someone beat Clay to it, and much to his surprise, the gunman had long black hair and she had her mama's eyes. Sis was only 21 and smart enough to hold her own. Her daddy used to beat those kids, and now he's dead and gone. She'd sworn off all religion, calloused heart and calloused hands. She fulfilled her promise and killed that evil man.
Okay, so time progresses. People have different interests and situations, and so Harry and Brian eventually left. Talk about that transition, please.
Yeah, so shortly after we got back from that tour, Harry was wanting to retire and go travel with his wife. Brian, he was raising kids and just needed to step away, and so Harry and Brian left, and I had always had my eye on Brent King, or L.B. Robertson as he's known, and wanted to have him, come on board. And then he was playing with a gentleman named John Blakely, who played bass and did some singing, and we interviewed them at my house one night, and we just started with a song, Deep Ellum Blues, I believe is what it was. We knew right away that they were a great fit, and gosh, that was 2010, I bet, somewhere along in there, and the band's been the same ever since. And when those two stepped in, that raised the bar just because of, some of the things that Brent could do and some of the things that John can do, and we started introducing a lot of different material, a lot of original material that was quite different than the traditional style.
Well, 10 years plus is a long run for any band with no personnel changes. That can only happen when everybody is compatible and gets along well, and that's really hard to do.
It is.
In something as personal as playing in a band.
Yeah.
Particularly, we played a lot.
We did. There were a few years where we were constantly playing maybe 2-3 times a week certain times of the year.
And then we've kind of dialed it back recently, haven't we?
We didn't get together for, over a year. But now we've kind of come back, and
here we are at Yellow Pine.
Here we are at Yellow Pine.
On the big stage again.
Stage, yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
You've observed Bluegrass in the Treasure Valley now for 20 years. You've brought a lot of name acts in. You brought in Valerie Smith. Third time out?
Yep.
And who else have you brought in?
Mike Compton
numerous times.
Buddy of mine, Frank Sullivan and Dirty Kitchen. Back when they were playing Cadillac Sky, they were the hottest, one of the hottest
Cadillac Sky
alternative bands in Bluegrass. Brought them in at the peak of their run. Yeah, just a bunch of good bands, different styles and whatnot. So
that is a lot of work to do those things.
Oh my word!
And costs too. And
yeah,
it's always puzzled me. Professional bluegrass musicians coming through aren't supported really well in this area. It's really hard to get people to turn out in enough numbers to break even on a group like Third Time Out. Why do you think that is?
I think advertising is one thing, getting the word out. There's so much to do in our area. And most of the time, when these acts are coming through, they're not going to come through our area on a Friday or Saturday. They're going to come through on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So I think that played a big part in it. I remember where I had to make sure I had all my kids in the audience just to make sure, the audience at least looked a little big. Most of the time, the way things work, those bands were just happy to get paid somewhere along the way because they were just trying to make a living. So I didn't care how many people turned out most of the time.
In 2014, Chicken Dinner Road issued the Extended Play CD Volume 1. This project included 5 Chicken Dinner Road originals and a song written by the wonderful songwriter Steve Brown. Steve joins Dennis on guitar and harmony vocals in performing his song Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Campbell lives by the airport in a trailer small but clean. I met him when I was in high school selling magazines. I was selling magazines. Mr. Campbell plays the guitar. Mr. Campbell sings his songs. The airplanes drown him out sometimes, but he doesn't mind at all. No, he doesn't mind at all. Mr. Campbell loves to sing and talk about the good old days. He laughs until the tears run down his tired, weathered face. Mr. Campbell talks about a true love gone, the eyes of an angel, a smile like the rainbow on the desert. Sailed the 7 seas. Not surprises Mr. Campbell, 'cause he's seen everything. Yeah, he's seen everything. Now he's seen great big ocean, water's blue as a summer sky. He's seen the rocks of Gibraltar, even seen a fish that flies. Yeah, he's seen a fish that flies. Mr. Campbell loves to sing and talk about the good old days. He laughs until the tears run down his tired, weathered face. Mr. Campbell talks about a true love gone, the eyes of an angel, a smile like a rainbow on the desert. And he sings la 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 la, whoa, to me, sings to me. They say that Mr. Campbell's crazy. They say the man has gone insane. Mama wouldn't let me see him, but I do it anyway. Yeah, I do it anyway. Mr. Campbell's lived a long time. Says the good times never end. He can be anything he wants to. Says he wants to be my friend. Says he wants to be my friend. Yeah. Mr. Campbell loves to sing and talk about the good old days. He laughs until the tears run down his tired, weathered face. Mr. Campbell talks about a true love gone, the eyes of an angel, a smile like a rainbow on the desert. And he sings la 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 la, whoa, to me, sings for me. Whoa, Mr. Campbell.
So how has bluegrass evolved in your 20 years here? Where do you see it headed?
I want to say that I can see Chicken Dinner Road in some bands that are popping up here and there, and I'm not as steeped in to the newer bands as I once was. I'm just too busy and can't get to a lot of stuff. But the ones that I have seen, there are a few of them that I can tell that they were influenced possibly by something that we were doing a few years ago or back 10, 12 years ago. And it's pretty cool to see. I still see some guys that are keeping with the traditional, but I see more open-minded folks nowadays than I did back then. I mean, people were really scared back 20 years ago when this band dared to venture off the beaten path and do something that wasn't traditional, because it seemed like there was kind of a bluegrass Gestapo that, if you don't have a banjo, you're not playing bluegrass. It's interesting to see how that's relaxed over the last 20 years.
I do appreciate people like Bob Greer and his Bluegrass in the Bond. Bob knew what he liked.
Absolutely.
He introduced so many people to traditional bluegrass. My hat's off to him.
Absolutely. Yep.
But he probably wouldn't hire Chicken Dinner Road to come in and play at his place.
I don't know, man. I forget the last time that we played the barn. I remember being shocked that we got asked to come back in there and play. And you know what? They welcomed us with open arms, just like they did the very first time we played in there.
So Bob circles us back to the beginning for both of us. I think I certainly had a rural background when I was growing up, and you grew up on a small farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's an environment that urban people rarely have.
I think it's extremely important for kids, if they have somebody. My kids have grown up listening to me. So I've got twins that are 18, and I've got a 15-year-old. They've kind of grown up listening to Chicken Dinner Road.
Well, I think it's really important to have bluegrass being played in an environment where young kids are welcome. Just having them exposed, seeing people having a great time playing the music,
Absolutely,
is really important.
Yeah, how many gigs have we played that you see my kids get out there and just dancing around, and and maybe not my son as he got older, but definitely my two girls getting out there, and that did my heart good for sure.
Okay, well, Dennis, we've rattled along here quite a while. So anything you want to say to just kind of wrap up? Any thoughts you want to share to the listening audience here about bluegrass in Idaho?
Yeah, I would just say bluegrass in Idaho is it's a welcome community. And if you have aspirations and you play or sing and you want to get involved, it's really easy to get involved. That was the thing that helped me get involved, was how welcoming it was. And there are people like Bob Greer that are willing to help. One thing about bluegrass music, you go to these jams and that sort of thing, and everybody just welcomes you in. It doesn't matter your skill level or whatever. And you can go and you can learn, always be learning. Yeah, I'm still learning a tremendous amount every time I go. Last night, instead of playing in a jam, I went and listened to other bands. That's one of the things that I do to help improve myself, is go listen to other musicians and see what they've got going on and see how they do things. And so I'd suggest, if you have an interest, get into it. It's very welcoming.
All right, Dennis, well, thank you very much, and let's go pick.
Thanks for having me, Gary.